You are listening to the Box Office Artists podcast. Good morning, everyone. Good morning. Today is the morning. Hi, everybody. My name is James Reyes. I am the Box Office Artist, 25 years as a professional artist working for Marvel, DC, Transformers, film, video games, and this is the Box Office Artist podcast, episode 3. Episode 3, coming on strong here and having a lot of fun. So thank you guys for joining in on the fun. If you're watching live, again, I know it's hard for people to watch live because I do this so early in the morning. But the reason I do this so early in the morning because it's definitely the most ideal for me. But thank you guys for joining in wherever you are in the world, or if you are catching this later on, or if you're listening to this on the podcast feed. I am currently streaming live on YouTube, on Twitter or X, Facebook, and Twitch. But this will also be on Apple Podcasts as well, wherever you get your podcasts. So wherever you are, make sure that you please do leave a review, or if you're watching live, please do leave a comment. Say hi in the comments. I do see them, and I will refer to them occasionally. If you're watching this later on, why don't you let me know that you're watching it? Let me know in the comments down below, and any suggestions that you would have of what I'm doing. As I do one of these hopefully every day. That's what I'm going for. And I could definitely use all the feedback I can get. So we were going to do that today. While I am talking, today I'm going to be working on this particular piece here. I am thinking about, I've been doing a lot of face-off drawings. I am actually thinking about doing a Ninja Turtle drawing today. So I'm actually thinking about doing a Last Ronin drawing here. So I did a very fast layout. But right now, let me just put up some reference here. And also, to be honest, I should have laid this out earlier, because whenever I draw, this is the hardest part for me, is trying to figure out what this looks like. But I did have like a pose down. As you can see here, I have a pose down. It's just a matter of trying to figure out what costume I want to add to this particular character here. But I'm just going to go ahead and start sketching and seeing everyone here. So thank you guys for joining along. I see some regulars in the chat here. My good buddy Knuckle Sandwich is here. Bullshar Gaming, Cohesive Cuts. Good to see you guys. And wherever you are in the world, if you're watching, thank you guys for watching along with me. And I'm going to just try to record on my other camera here. I didn't even change the card. I was probably full at this point, so just bear with me. Zoom in. There you go. We'll see if this actually records here. But thank you guys for joining in as we talk about a little discussion today. And I thought a fun discussion would be today the life of a comic book artist. Okay. We talked about, yesterday's topic was about breaking through. It was all about breaking through and how I broke through in all the different industries. So depending on the time today, I would like just to focus on comics today. But depending on the time, if we have a lot of time, and there's not a lot, and there's a lot of questions, not a lot of questions about the life of a comic book artist, we could delve into my life in film as well, and how my day-to-day looked like in film also. So it all depends. All depends. We'll see how we feel. But at the very least, we will concentrate on the comic book side, because I had pretty well, I wouldn't say I had a long career as a comic book artist. I've been working comics. I worked in comics full time for about 6 years. 6 years working full time as a comic book artist before I transitioned into going into film. So. That's the one thing. I loved comic book art. I absolutely did. But I always say that nobody really gets into comics for the money. Okay. And that's not going to be this podcast. Okay. I'm sure we will have a podcast down the line where I will go in depth about how much people actually make in all these businesses. I'm sure that'd be a very well liked podcast from my limited experience here. But I can tell you guys how I went about doing what I do. And I'm just pulling up some Last Ronin reference here, guys, because I did not have this completely laid out. like I usually do. Sometimes I do that just so I could be able to talk freely in these podcasts here. But 6 years is quite the sample size, and I will say that the life of a comic book artist, it's it's not easy, definitely not easy, and it has changed. It has changed a lot. Like if you if you go to Disney Plus, you can actually see they do some little documentaries on lives of comic book artists. And for example, there's some comic artists that live. There's this one comic book artist that lives out of their car, or they have like a camper, and they just travel from convention to convention, and all the while stopping by and and doing their actual comic book work. So they don't have a fixed address. There's actually a lot of comic book artists who, well, I won't say a lot, but I have heard stories of quite a few comic artists that don't have a fixed address. They just go around. They live in hotels, right? Hotel to hotel, because there's always a convention every week. There's always a convention every week, and then they live in the hotel. They do their work in the hotel, and then they travel. They travel to different places, especially in the U.S. You could probably do that more in the U.S. than in Canada, mainly because of course, because of border purposes and where you are living. For me, I probably couldn't do that because there aren't enough conventions here to sustain that kind of lifestyle here. And of course, I'm a family man. Of course, you can't do that if you're a family man. But it does sound like an interesting life. It might have been something I would try if I was younger and if I was living in the U.S. If I was living in the U.S., that's something you could do probably more, again, than here. Because today, conventions are a huge, huge part of a comic book artist's lifestyle, way more than before. Because before, back when I was doing it, back in the early 2000s, like Comic-Con was a thing. Going to conventions were a thing, but it's not like a weekly thing like it is today. Or at least I wasn't a part of that. Anyway, I wasn't a part of that anyway. Things about like selling prints at cons and stuff like that was non-existent at the time. That was non-existent. However, you were there, you were selling your books, and you were, selling original pages. That was always there. People always want to buy original pages. But in terms of the actual lifestyle of going around, because, kind of, now talking about it, sounds like a fun life. Just try to go around a new con every week, and then just kind of travel there and live out of hotels and stuff. It's an interesting life, for sure. But that wasn't the life that I particularly led when I was doing comic books here. So again, guys, just bear with me here and there because I am looking at trying to look up some references here for the Last Ronin here. So that is what I'm drawing. I'm drawing a turtle piece. Everything I'm working on, guys, I'm trying to prepare for all the upcoming conventions. So before we go ahead and talk about the life of a comic book artist, let me do a quick plug. Speaking of conventions, talk about the conventions that I will be part of this year. And forgive me if you heard this many times if you're listening to my podcast, but I do want to plug my appearances, starting off with Montreal Comic Con. At the time of this recording, it will be next week. Montreal Comic Con will be on from July 4th to 6th in the Palais du Congrès. I think that's how you say it. But just look at Montreal Comic Con. So excited to be there. I haven't been to Montreal Comic Con since, I would like to say 2016. 2016. That was a long time ago. But Todd McFarlane's going to be there. And, I'm starting to play some interviews here. I'm wondering, I'm going to try to see if I could get an interview with Todd McFarlane. I'll see. I'm going to ask I'm going to ask the organizers if they're willing to. Again, don't hold your breath. I fully understand if they don't want me to, because he probably has already a busy schedule. But I will see if they were willing to let me do that. So that would be Ottawa. What's it called? Montreal Comic Con, July 4th to 6th. I have TFCon Toronto, which is coming up the following week. That is July 12th and 13th. That's here in Toronto, Canada, Mississauga specifically. Mississauga, Ontario, Canada. So excited to go there. I haven't been to TFCon since I believe it was 2018, if I'm not mistaken. I could be wrong. 2018. So super excited. Super excited to go to TFCon Toronto. If you are interested in commissions, all that, please do email me. Contact at jamesraysmedia.com. And we will go from there. And hello, Mario. Good to see you. Also, big one, Fan Expo Canada in August. Okay, Fan Expo Canada from August 21st to the 24th at the Metro Toronto Convention Center here in downtown Toronto. And I will be having a booth over there, a big booth. So double the size that I usually have. I'm going all out for that one. I'm doing a lot of expense for this one. Okay, so I'm actually paying a lot of money to actually do this one. So this is actually like more artist alley. I'm actually going to be more in the artist alley than with the professionals, though I think they are putting the professionals that are buying tables together. So that's going to be, we're going to see how it goes, guys. So I'm actually super excited. It's going to be an experiment. I'm pretty sure I could at the very least make my money back, but I'm hoping to do a little bit better. So that's how that's going to go. And, of course, we have Ottawa Comic-Con coming up in September 5th through the 7th. Hopefully London Comic-Con, but we'll see. And I got Winnipeg Comic-Con at the end of the year. Any other convention that I'm at, I will definitely let you guys know when the proper time arises, okay? Because conventions is a huge part of a comic book artist's lifestyle, okay? Especially today. Now, it wasn't back then, though. It wasn't back then. Knuckle Sandwich, hopefully visiting Canada. I would love to see you in Canada, my friend. Knuckle Sandwich. Oh, by the way, I got an amazing birthday present. For those of you who didn't know, it was my birthday a couple days ago. And one of the presents I got, I'm going to go, I got tickets to go see All Out, AEW All Out in September. That'll be September 20th. I'm actually so excited to see that show. Of course, AEW isn't what it was back in 2021, but nonetheless, super, super excited. Most likely the reunion of Edge and Christian. I think that's what's going to happen on that show. So excited to see that. But anyway, this is not a wrestling podcast. This is we'll talk about the life of a comic book artist. Okay, so super excited to talk about that. Okay, so once again, yesterday we talked about breaking through, and you guys know my very first comic book job was working for a company called Dreamwave Productions. Now, back then, something that's actually very missing today is the good old studio life. Okay, the studio life of comics. Now, there are some comic studios today. And usually if you see a comic studio, it's a bunch of professionals that get together. They pitch in to pay for the space. And they just go there to work every day. So it's like having an office space. So they're able to go in and work. There is a studio in Toronto now. Yes, I am drawing turtles right now, Mario. There is a studio space in Toronto. It's called Raid Studio. And a lot of professionals work at Raid Studio right now. My good friend Francis Manipal used to be a part of Raid Studio, but then he ended up making his own studio later on because it's a bit far from where he lives. If my friend Francis, if he lived closer to me, I would definitely try to go work with him. Maybe co-rent his studio and go there every day because it's nice. It's nice. To actually go in and work in an actual studio. And by the way, Knuckle Sandwich has a cool thing, says there's a convention happening here called Dreamwave Productions. Really? Interesting. Very, very interesting. Okay. But Dreamwave was my very first job. And one of the reasons why I wanted to work at Dreamwave was because it was a studio. Because, sometimes you have to be disciplined as an artist because a lot of times today, if you are to work in comics, you are working from home most of the time. And I will discuss that, how I worked from home when I was working in comic books. But starting off, before I was married, my first job was working for Dreamwave. So I was still living at home. with my parents, and the studio was roughly around, I would like to say 40 minutes from my house. 40 minutes. I lived in a place called Brampton, Ontario, home of the great comedian Russell Peters. That's where I was born and raised. But the studio was in a place called Richmond Hill / Markham area, which is roughly around 30 to 40 minutes. 30 minutes if there's like late at night, no traffic. Well over an hour if it's like midday. But like I mentioned yesterday, most of the guys there. First of all, it was a very, very fun experience because everyone who worked there, we were roughly all the same age. Okay, very young at the time. Pat Lee, the owner of the studio, and his brother. Pat Lee was like 25, I think, 25 years old. He owned the studio. His brother, I think, is only like a year or two older than him, if I'm not mistaken. And everyone else was young. Like, I think I was only like 20 at the same time. So it's like think about it, it's kind of like a frat house. If you kind of think about it. It's kind of frat housey in that sense, where, all of us were young. And the thing is, we had weird hours. We had very, very weird hours over there. I think there was only one guy there that actually took it as a 9 to 5. And I think that was his name was Adrian. He was a colorist and writer, and he would treat it like a job. He would come in. I won't say just him. I think there were two guys who did that. Adrian sang. He was a writer and colorist, so he would come in 9, do his lunch, and leave at 5. He would do that every day. Another guy who would do that is a good friend of mine. His name's Mr. Rob Armstrong, one of the main anchors for Pat at the time. He had he pretty much came in at regular hours, even if there was no work. He would come in and work on his own personal stuff if there was like nothing to do, or if we were late. We were notorious for being late. But yeah, everyone else, we came in at really weird times. Like me, myself, I was the only one who went. Well, I wasn't the only one. I came into the studio, I think usually around 7 o'clock. 6 or 7 o'clock at nighttime. We would get there around 6 or 7 o'clock at nighttime. And I remember the old studio. It was in this building, like a two-story building. And I remember down below in that building, there was some let's just call them questionable businesses down in that building. If ever, if I were to meet some of you guys in person, I could tell you some stories I probably shouldn't be telling online here about things I saw. But I will say that we were on the second floor of that building. And, the studio layout itself, you walk in, and I remember correctly, you walk in, and we had a little reception area. And if you go to the left, there were 3 rooms on the left. You had Pat's office. Pat had his own office, of course. He owns the place. And then there was another room full of computers, lock, stock, full of computers. There's about 15, 20 computers in there for the colorists. And beside that was like a rec room. So you could just imagine this is nothing too big. I would say nothing too big and fancy. And then so just say you turn left for the first door on your left. That would be the computer room. Straight ahead, that would be the rec room, and to the right would be Pat's office. Okay. Now you go down the hallway. You turn around. You go down the hallway a little bit, and then that's where. We had one other room there that was doubled as a boardroom. Okay, and I'm trying to remember correctly. And then you go a little bit further down. There were a couple of offices there, and then there was one bigger office with about 6 tables, six or seven drawing tables in there, 6 or 7 drawing tables. and that's where most of the artists that commuted. That's where we all worked in there. I remember Rob had the table that was all the way, the far on the left, and a friend of mine, Alvin Lee, who was Pat's original inker, and then he became a penciler himself. Now he's a big gaming artist right now. He had the other corner. Okay, and then everyone else, we kind of shared the desks over there. Another guy who had a desk, I remember when I first started working there, was a man named Omar Doggin. Omar's actually pretty popular online these days, but he had the desk that was a little bit closer. And speaking of Omar, I remember Omar. He was one of the fastest artists I've ever seen. One of the fastest. He would churn a page out in like 2 hours. He was so fast. So he was at the time he was working on Dark Minds. So he was working on the second series of Dark Minds at the time. A lot of those guys ended up leaving and doing work for Marvel DC. Like Dreamwave is a whole. To be honest, it's a whole podcast all on itself. Everything that kind of went on at Dreamwave, but we're not going to focus completely on that. We were going to focus more on the life of a comic book artist. So we're going to focus on the studio aspect of the life there. So I would come in roughly around 7 or so, and then I would go ahead and whatever is available for me at the time. I was doing backgrounds. So if there were pages ready for me, I would just go there, sit there, and work. And work. I'd pick a table and start doing some work there. Now, the thing was, like I said, guys, we were all very young. We were all in our 20s. Okay, so, and if you guys remember Dreamwave back in the day, those of you who were comic book fans, if any of you remember Dreamwave back in the day, we were notorious for being late in all of our books. And I will chalk up some of that for us being a little inexperienced, for us being a little bit undisciplined. I would say, again, the most disciplined guys in there, the two most disciplined guys in there was Omar, like I mentioned, and Rob Armstrong. He if he had a project that day, he would stay there and not leave till it was done. The rest of us, we took our sweet time. For me, I would work for a little bit, maybe like an hour, and then we would end up talking with everybody else. A lot of them would go like roughly around. We would work maybe till 2 a.m, and then everyone would go into the computer lab area, and they would play Counter-Strike till 4 or 5 in the morning, something like that, or maybe around 11 o'clock. Everyone would pick up, and we would go to Pat's favorite hangout place, Just Desserts. For those of you who were back in the day, everyone remembers Just Desserts. That was our hangout. Pat loved going there. He went there every day to that place, and he would work in Just Desserts. Sometimes he would work in that little establishment there. But we were very late. And I chalk that up for me, chalking that up to being very undisciplined in what we were doing back then. So that's what we would do. And I would average, if I could be honest, I would average probably about a quarter of a page. I was so slow. Like, unless the deadline hit. If the deadline was hitting, then I would definitely be working a bit harder. I would be working a bit harder. They're trying to make the deadline, but for the most part, undisciplined kids, undisciplined. I cringe a little bit when I think about it right now. How undisciplined I was, because if I knew if I was a little bit more disciplined, these books would have came out in time. I knew if I was more disciplined, more opportunities would have came my way. For sure. If I was a little bit more disciplined, if I did the work on time, it's and apologies guys, I just went a little bit. it's just something that I should have done more at the time. So whenever you're working in comics, a monthly book, that's what you're going for. So you need a book a month in that sense. And we were so late. Now the thing is, when a comic book shop, when they order a comic book, okay, at that time, I'm not sure how it is today. Maybe I should ask my friend. Maybe I should ask my friend Carlos. Carlos owns Gotham City Comic Con. By the way, Gotham City Gotham City Central, Gotham Central is a comic book store here, very close to me actually, in Mississauga, Ontario. They're actually having a summer bash this coming weekend, and I really wanted to be a part of that. Have a table and everything, and I was planning on doing that, but then I ended up. I am going to Texas this coming weekend, so I'm excited to go there. So if any of you are in the Toronto area, go check it out. It's a fun time. It's gonna be a fun time this weekend. Over 30 artists are going there, and Carlos has been very, very good to me. So I'm not sure if this way is the same as it was. And hello, Jonathan. Good to see you. But back in the day, when a comic book shop orders the comic book, if the comic book delivers on time, okay, the comic book shop is stuck with it. Okay, so whether they sell all of it or none of them, they have to keep the issues. Okay, if the comic is late, if the comic book is late, then the comic shop can return the comic. They're allowed to return the comic book. Okay, and so it's kind of incentive not to make our books late. It was a big incentive not to make our books late, because if our books were late, there's a good chance that a lot of the merchandise will come back and that's money lost. That's money lost for the company. But we were always late. We were definitely always late with everything we did. And I do chalk that down to work ethic on my end, because I wasn't doing my job as fast as I could have, so, and mainly because I was too busy socializing, way too busy socializing at the time. So you just do the best you can. So I remember one time. We were working on a top secret project. So when we got the Transformers license, so I was going to work on Transformers Armada, okay? But it was a secret book. Nobody could know about it. So what they ended up doing was, remember I told you about that conference room? They turned that into a special room for myself and another artist. His name's Pierre. Remember Pierre? He was the colorist. For my book. He was chosen to be my colorist. And they put our desks in there, and nobody was allowed to go in that room. Nobody was allowed to go in that room except for me and Pierre. And, of course, Pat. Pat and Adam, he was our producer at the time. They were the only ones allowed to go into that room because it was so secretive what we were working on. They didn't want anyone else in the company to know we were working on that particular book. And I remember that. Because that was my first, like I mentioned before, that was my first fully drawn comic. Was Transformers Armada. Okay, when I was working on backgrounds for Pat, it was up and down in terms of like. Sometimes you're waiting on pages a lot. Sometimes you're waiting for work. So there were some times where, we were, I was just waiting for stuff to do sometimes. That's the hard part when you're waiting on other artists. That's the thing with comics at the time. It was like an assembly line. If the penciler, like if you're a colorist or your inker, if the penciler's not on time, everything's backlogged. So you gotta kind of have to wait around for them to finish, and then usually they only give you a little bit of time, and everyone else on the further down you go on the assembly line, the harder it is, because they have less time to do their job if the writer or the penciler is slow. So they took the brunt of trying to get these books out on time. So I was working in that office. I remember, I remember. That was a fun time because people wanted to come in, and I wasn't allowed to let them in. And Pierre's there as well. Pierre's a funny guy, and he was there, and he was shaving at his desk, stuff like that. I remember I saw Pierre later at Ubisoft. He was working at Ubisoft when I was working at Ubisoft, and I think I saw him outside, and I didn't recognize him, and I just kind of walked past him. He said, "Hey, how you doing?" I'm like, "Hey," and I walked past. I didn't realize it was him till later on. He must think I hated him or something like that, but no, I didn't. I didn't, definitely. So that was our life, really. We would go there, and sometimes I would stay there days on end. Sometimes, I remember I would stay there overnight, and then late at night, like 3 a.m, if I've been there for a couple days, I'd go into the women's washroom because there was no girls that worked there, right? At the time, especially that late at night, no girls. I would go into the girls' washroom just to kind of freshen up a bit, to wash up. Let's just say that, wash up. Kind of looked like took a mini bath there because I was at the office for so long. Like, James, why didn't you go home? Well, it took 45 minutes to drive home, so it's a good like hour and a half. So it was easier just to buy a bar of soap and then go clean myself at the washroom over there. Things we do. I remember we moved to another studio when things were really good at Dreamwave. They got this bigger office building, and I had my own office actually. I had my own office, and I would sleep in the office. I had a sleeping bag in the office, and I would actually go there, and I would stay there for like 3 days in a row. 3 days in a row. And I remember my dad calling me up one day. He goes, hey, James, how you doing? I'm like, hi, Dad. I'm doing okay, just at work. And he goes, good. I'm just checking if you're alive. You haven't been home for 4 days. I'm like, no, I'm at work, Dad. I'm just sleeping at work. No problem. So, fun times, my friends. Fun times. Yeah, that studio was a lot of fun. The studio we moved to, it was very expensive. I know it was very, very expensive. But, we felt, it made us feel big. Yeah, I mean? It made us feel like we made it. We were a small studio. We felt like a big studio because of the place that we were in. Though I knew the company was hemorrhaging money at the time. There were a lot of pay problems with everything, and I won't go too deep into that. I think I'll say that for another podcast. But definitely, it was a nice studio. It was definitely a nice studio. There was a gym in the downstairs, so we all took advantage of going to the gym every day. There was a Tim Hortons in the building. I remember when that Tim Hortons came to. I felt so bad. There was a coffee shop in the basement, and we would always go to that coffee shop every day. But then I think after a year, a Tim Hortons. Tim Hortons is a Canadian coffee chain. For those of you who don't know, they opened in the building right beside us, so a quick walk, and the coffee shop in our building had to close down. Because nobody went there anymore. Everybody went to Tim Hortons. Everybody went to the Tim Hortons across. I felt so bad for that owner. Felt so bad for them. And you want to support, but I want my Timmy's. I'll be honest. Today, I'm more of a Starbucks drinker than a Timmy's drinker. I was converted, unfortunately. It's not good for my wallet, guys. Definitely not good for my wallet. But yeah, it was a fun time. It was a fun time. And then I got a job doing Tokyo Storm Warning for DC. So, I think part of me was hoping Pat would let me still work in the office when I told him I got the job. He was happy for me, but not really. You know what I mean? He was happy for me, not really. For twofold. Number one, I'm not going to be working with him anymore and helping him out. Number two, he probably wanted the same job. That's a thing. They want the same job. That's the thing. Comic artists are competitive like that. That's why I always tell newer artists. I always tell a lot of you guys who want to be comic book artists, to be honest, if you are going for a job in comic books, you're not just competing with brand new people. You're not competing with amateurs who's never worked on a comic. You are also competing with 20-year professionals for the exact same job. They're looking for the exact same job. So part of me feels that like Pat was a little jealous in that sense, that I was going to be working with Warren. Now, she had no right, he didn't need to because, he's Pat Lee at the time. Like Marvel was fawning over him, giving him all that work. But it kind of felt that way just a little bit. But so maybe more that he wanted me to still work with him, right, at the time. So, so I was hoping he would say I could still work in the office. But then the questions he'd been asking me, about working from home and all that stuff, like it was obvious that no, I wasn't allowed to go to the studio and work there. Maybe if we were closer friends, me and Pat, he would let me work in the studio itself. But no. So I ended up going to work at for DC on Tokyo Storm Warning. Now, before we get any further about how I actually worked in there, let's talk a little bit about the actual job itself, working in comic books, especially as a comic book penciler. Have you guys ever seen a script? Have you actually seen a comic book script? You hear a lot about something called, the Marvel method of drawing comic books. And what Marvel method is, it was a way to kind of speed up the process back in the day in the 60s and 70s, where because guys like Stan Lee, he was working on like 10 titles at a time. So to kind of speed up the process, they put a little bit more trust into the artist. Oh, and Timon threw in a super chat. Thank you, my friend. Thank you. He says, Timon Wiener threw in a $5 super chat. Says, I'm doing my own comics, indie, my own scripts, my own art. The art is subpar. I don't care as long as the story's good. There you go. Congratulations, my friend. And these days, you want to be the idea guy. Okay? We'll talk about that more when we get to our AI podcast later on, my friend. But anyway, like I was saying, there was something we called Marvel method. So what would happen was the writer would just give a general outline of what would happen in during a certain amount of pages, and then the artist would go, and he or she would go and draw how he felt those pages should be laid out. So, for example, a Marvel method. Let me see if I can find a quick Marvel method script here. Marvel method script. It's just so I could give you an understanding here. Okay. Let's see if I can find a Marvel method script here. Script samples. Okay, here we go. I think I found some scripts. I'm just going to read one out for you, okay? Oh, no, that's not it. Let's see here. Okay. By the way, I'm looking at... if you guys are interested to see how a script looks, I just found this website, the VFX Experience, and I believe, actually, they had some like paid courses before, if I'm not mistaken. But they have a whole bunch of scripts here. And let's see if I can find one. So, by the way, guys, if you ever want to go ahead and look up a script, okay? Actually, maybe I'll even show this if you are interested. I'm trying to find a Marvel size script. Let's see. No, these are all full script. But anyway, with that in mind, it was just something simple. Like, for example, Superman has a conversation with Batman about Lex Luthor coming to town, and then all of a sudden, these giant robots break in to their fortress and they fight for a couple pages. So they would say something like that, okay? And then the artist would go and then lay out those panels, okay, any way they want. Okay, so there's a lot of creative freedom there. I never worked that method. Every time that I worked in a comic book, it was a traditional. Excuse me. Excuse me. I'm still sick, man. It was a traditional comic book style, panel for panel, a script of how things would work, and that's how Warren Ellis worked too. Like sometimes they would even go as far as give you camera angles and lens types. Sometimes didn't even give you that kind of freedom, right? To go ahead and do those things. So it all depends on the writer, how much trust they have in their particular artist. So when I was working at whether I was working at Dreamwave or when I was working for any publisher, I worked actually full script for everything. Maybe I should do a podcast about actually working with writers and such. Like, for example, I'll tell you right now, Mr. Simon Furman did not like the way I drew. I remember once he complained about my choices in terms of panels. Once and then he wrote a message to our editor about it, and I don't think he was expecting the editor to send me his email because his email was kind of harsh, a little bit harsh. So I messaged it and I apologized. He's like, "Oh no, man, it's okay, it was good. It's just this and that, right?" But Simon's a legend, right? Simon Furman's a legend, but definitely in terms of full script. Now, full script helps too. Like, it all depends on how creative you are. But it's just how I'm accustomed to working. So for you new artists there, if you look up Comics Experience scripts, you'll see a lot of scripts there. And I always tell new comic artists, you got to make comics, okay? You can't just draw Wolverine and Spider-Man, all that stuff, and you'll get a job. No, you got to prove that you could actually do the work, okay? So make sure that you are doing the work there, okay? Let's see here. Knuckle Saber says, I got a book called How to Draw Comics the Marvel Way. Yep. Wonder if that's how you said wonder if that's what you said is mentioned in it. That's part of it. Yep, for sure. That's part of it in that book, too. That's a great book, by the way. That's still relevant even today. So it's a much easier read than a lot of the comic books today. Because when I was growing up in the industry, when I was trying to be a comic book artist, most will tell you to get certain books when it comes to becoming a comic book artist, and the ones that always came up were Comics and Sequential Art by Will Eisner, How to Draw Comics the Marvel Way by Stan the Man Lee, and Understanding Comics by Scott McCloud. Understanding Comics is fantastic. I think that's my favorite out of the bunch because it actually gave me an understanding of comics and the way comics work that I didn't understand until I read that particular book. Okay, so I would suggest all those books, even today, for anyone who wants to be a comic book artist. So maybe for one of these podcasts, what I could do is is review those books and some of the theories behind those books. Okay, maybe I could like reread them and then talk about some of the things that they go over in those books. I think that would be an interesting thing to do. But in terms of what's called, in terms of scripts, those are the types of scripts that we had there. So now I wasn't working at a studio. I was pretty much working straight from home at the time now. Okay, so when you're working at home, it's even harder to be disciplined when you're by yourself working at home because there's just so many distractions. There's so many distractions. If you're a little ADD like me, again, self-diagnosed, so again, don't want to take away from people with actual ADD here. I have the symptoms of ADD, but I never got it checked out. Let's just say that. Okay, never got it checked out. But it's hard. Like you wake up in the morning and you're just trying to get ready to work. Like I would even say, like if the internet age is like how it is today, oh man, I never would have succeeded back then, especially the way I worked back then. I never would have succeeded because there's just way too many distractions. Way, way, way too many distractions. So, because ideally you would wake up in the morning, and, have yourself some breakfast, do a little bit of work, lunch, a little bit of work, and then finish. But it wasn't really like that for me. It was just hard to get going. I'd be like walking around the room a lot, things like that. Like it really wasn't till the deadline was popping up. That's when I really started pumping out the work here. So whenever I was working at for a freelance work job, that was pretty much it. Like I remember when I had my house at the time, a different house that I'm living in now. It was a 2-story house. We had a room there that was my office, and I had my drawing table there. And I remember there was a gas station that wasn't too far from my place, and they were selling energy drinks. And my energy drink, of course, was a Rockstar. That was my energy drink of choice, sugar-free Rockstar. So, and I remember they were selling it 2 for $3 at the time, so I would buy them by the case. And on this side of the room, I would have the cases of Rockstar there. On the other side was a recycle bin. And I would drink it. Like I would drink and then throw in the recycle bin. Drink and throw in the recycle bin. My pee was glow in the dark. I'll tell you that much right now. Was not good, guys. Was not good. Not healthy at all. Not healthy at all. But it felt like I was working at all times during the day. Okay, but then it was like always busy, but not doing anything. It was a lot of times like that. But when I was working in, as time went on, and I was working sometimes I was working on multiple projects at a time. Sometimes I would time things out. I would put a timer out, and you see me do that on my channel too. Sometimes I would actually throw up a timer. Or I would put an alarm on. I got to finish this panel in an hour, this panel in an hour type thing. So it's so hard to be disciplined. It is very, very hard to be disciplined, even for someone who loves comics, right? Who loves drawing. I found it extremely hard to stay on track and do the work when I'm supposed to work. Those people who are going to succeed in comics are those who work even when they don't want to work. Because it's just hard. It was just hard. It was a hard life. In that sense. And even though I'm working at home, I'm not there for my family because I'm in my room. I'm drawing all day. That's all I'm doing. That's the life of a freelance artist. And at the same time, you're kind of worried. You're kind of worried about finding the next job. It was very difficult. And it's sometimes hard to find motivation in your room. So in my old house, I remember I would work in every corner of the house, every corner of the house. So I wouldn't just work in my office. I'd go downstairs and I'd work in the dining room, and then I'd work in the family room, and then I'd work in the kitchen, leaving a trail behind, trail of pens and pencils and reference papers and comic books and all that. They get so mad at me. My family gets so mad at me because I'd be leaving a trail of stuff always, all over the place. But that was the life. That was the life of a comic book artist there. The only person I really saw was the FedEx lady. The FedEx lady. It's not like it is today. Today, if you were just a penciler, you just kind of email your finished pencils to the inker. The inker prints it out on a blue line paper, and they ink it. They link it over the blue line. So there's kind of like two originals these days, right? There's two originals. But back then, we actually FedEx the pages to either you FedExed it to the company or you FedExed it directly to the inker, depending on how late you were. So the only person I really saw every week was the FedEx lady who came to pick up the work or came to drop off FedEx boxes of comic book paper. It's the only person I saw. And you're working all day, every day. That's the thing. You got all day, every day. There you go. That's what it feels like. There's no 9 to 5. There really isn't. Unless you're so disciplined. That's why I admire guys like guys who are able to make it in comics. Guys are the ones who are disciplined. The ones who actually get their stuff done on time. Those are the guys who are going to make it, guys. So if you were like me, you're going to have a hard time. I will tell you right now, you will have a hard time working in comics if you have a hard time drawing when you don't want to draw. Because there are times like that. There are definitely times like that all the time where I just didn't want to draw. And you're drawing at all times during the day. It's really tough, guys. It's really, really tough. So it felt like I was constantly working 7 days a week. It felt like 20 hours a day, even though probably those 20 hours a day, I'm just sitting there doing nothing. Or I'm distracted by other things. There was internet back then. So maybe I was like researching something or looking up wrestling. I did that a lot. I looked up wrestling. Really upset my friends. I was always looking. Ask Mark Michael. There were times I'd go to his house and I would go to his house and I'd just go on the internet and look at wrestling news all day long. He was so upset with me because I would do stuff like that. And every right to be upset with me doing stuff like that. Yeah. I'm a horrible friend. But anyway, I'm sure Mark will tell you that. Okay, so just give me 1 second here, guys. I'm going to quickly make room on my hard drive here because I forgot to transfer over some footage. But guys, thank you guys for watching, for being part of the live stream today. If you have any questions, please do ask me your questions. By all means, go ahead and ask me your questions in the chat. And thank you guys for hanging out with me this morning. So far, so good. This is our third podcast that we've done. And it's been a lot of fun so far. So I have not put up these podcasts yet on Apple Podcasts. I will probably put them up all together, even today. I might even do that today, hopefully. So if you have missed the previous podcast, you could also go back and watch them on this particular channel here. But if not, then by all means, go check that out on the other channel there. Okay, so we go ahead and I'm just transferring some footage over so I could keep recording here. For those of you who don't know, I am currently drawing The Last Ronin. The Last Ronin here. It's a character I've only drawn like once for a commission. I think I've only drawn him once for a commission. It was a lot of fun. So I want to do more turtle stuff. Turtles I love turtles. And, it's a niche I want to get into more. Doing more turtles style drawings. So, IDW, I'm right here, man. IDW, I'm right here, man. So, now when I went back into comics a little bit later on. Okay, let me start recording again. Okay, so when I went back into comics, I had another small cup of coffee with comics back in, I'd like to say 2012, 2012, 2013, 2014. I was working on Dark Cybertron for IDW. And that's one thing, guys. Before, if IDW still had the license, I'd be working in Transformers today. I would be working in Transformers today, no question. But these days, like I mentioned, it seems like Skybound is not interested in hiring OG original Transformers artists, or we're just not, or at least for me personally. But there's a lot of us. They're just not interested in our style of artwork now for Transformers comics, which is fine. It's their, they have the license, so they can do whatever they want with it. But when I was working on Dark Cybertron, one thing I would do, because I was a little bit more disciplined then, was I talked about trying to get out of the house and get a new environment. There's a library with a great working area. It's about an hour, like a 10-minute drive from my place. But with that 10-minute drive, it was about an hour walk, 45-minute walk. So what I did in the morning was I would get my kids ready for school. And then once they got to school, or once they left the house to go to school, I would actually go and walk to the library. So I would take the 45-minute walk. I bring my stuff with me. Bring a lunch. I would try to hide it because you can't eat. You're not supposed to eat food in the library. You're not supposed to eat food in the library. And I would go work in the library. And I would actually I would call it a Rob Armstrong, where I would actually try to do regular hours there. So I would get there around 10 a.m. because the library opened at 9:30. And I would hunker down there and I would actually get to work over there. And that actually worked for me. Because, I'm focused. I'm focused there. I'm not going around. I was there and I would just sit at one of the tables and I would draw. That's how I would do it. And it was a lot of fun. I remember I was a little bit behind on my book there. And I would actually draw the pages half size. So this is 11 by 17 piece of paper. This is what we usually draw our comics on. I would draw it the size of a comic book. So my pages were actually this size. For those of you who are watching me live, like this size. I would actually draw them smaller and then use smaller pens. But I was hoping it would be faster. And it was faster. It was definitely faster. I will say, though, it kind of ruined the original art market for those pages, though. Because that's the one thing about making money in comics. It's one thing, just your regular page rate. But they say today, and again, we'll talk about this more when we get a little bit more into how to earn a living as a comic book artist in one of these podcasts. They say today comic books are just advertisings for the conventions these days. Makes a lot of sense, actually. So, so it kind of hurt me selling those pages because they're not a traditional size. They're smaller. So I couldn't charge for them as much as I would have if they were full size. So later on I'll tell you guys about my theories about original art and all that stuff in another podcast. Because that's definitely a fun topic, talking about how to sell original art in today's day and age and stuff. So yeah, that was a fun time. That was a fun time doing that. I was definitely more disciplined. Definitely more disciplined when I was working in comics the final time. So I am hoping maybe I'll be able to get another gig here and there. I think I do need to make a new portfolio, though. If I was to try to get into comics today, I probably would need to make a new portfolio. I was hoping I didn't have to, that the stuff I did in the past would be sufficient, but I don't think it is. Unfortunately, I will have to do some newer stuff. But we'll see. We'll see how it goes. We'll see how it goes. If any of you guys are editors that are watching, I'd love to work. Hey, and working comes with a lot of free advertising on my end. So 2 for 1. 2 for 1, my friends. So anyway, so that is actually working the kind of life. Working in comics. It's not easy, guys. It really isn't easy. Those who are going to succeed, and I think I was getting to this earlier, a guy like Mark Bagley, a guy who worked in the military, like he was able to discipline himself where he could actually do 2.5 to 3.5 pages a day. He works Monday through Saturday, and then a little bit on Sunday too. He worked from 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. every day. So he did like 3 pages a day. Can you imagine that? Being Mark Bagley, so you're already earning $300-400 a page. You're doing 3 pages a day. Times that by 6, right? What is that? Let's do the math now. Times that by 6. So 300, just say $400 a day. 400 per page. 1,200 a day. Times 6. Okay. Plus, he could go ahead and sell those pages for thousands of dollars. He's doing well. He's doing well because he was able to make a name for yourself. Comics can be quite lucrative if you're disciplined and you're able to make a name for yourself, and if your style sells. If your style sells, you can make a lot of money in comic books. That's the thing about comics today. But again, it's a hard life. It's not for everybody. It's definitely not for everybody. So yeah. So I did have some questions here that I could definitely go over. So just off the top of my head, like I had some questions prepared. Just off the top of my head, and maybe I should wrote some notes. That's pretty much what it was for me, working in comic books. Okay, right. So there you go. Let's talk a little bit about. Here's a question here. And I kind of covered this a little bit yesterday in terms of breaking through. I had a question come in about the books I worked on here. So let me just write this here quickly, and I'm just going to change the title. But if you guys have any questions, by all means, let me know. I'd love to answer your questions. But here is a question here, and I'm going to put that here. And it will be down here. We can put that down here right now. And the first question is, what was your first published comic book work? Okay, what I like about this question is that there's multiple answers for this because I could go by publisher. Okay, I could go by publisher here. So let's start with the obvious one. Again, my very, very first published work was Neon Cyber number 5 for Dreamwave Productions. That my first published work, 3/4 of a page, okay, of backgrounds for Neon Cyber number 5. Okay, the second work that was actually published was for both Dreamwave and for Top Cow, because I did backgrounds for Dark Mind's Witchblade. Okay, so that was the book I did on my for my internship for college. So I did about, to be honest, in 2 weeks I did about 4 pages, but they were very, very detailed 4 pages. So that's why I worked like a couple days on a page per, for the 2 weeks that I had the work placement, and they were very happy with it. Enough so that they kept me on doing more things. So. My very first fully penciled book. Okay. Well, let me start earlier. Okay. For a while, not only did I do backgrounds, but I kind of did the layout. So it's like I kind of drew the book. I drew the book, but then Pat just went in and fixed up the figures. And then we said Pat penciled it. That actually did start with Dark Mind's Witchblade as well. So for the first half of the book, Pat laid out everything, and then I drew it. For the second half of the book, I laid out the book, and then Pat just fixed the faces, and then I did the background. So, it's one of those things. Of course, the figures are what sell the book. So that would be Dark Minds Witchblade 2. The reason I brought that up because I was thinking that was for a book called Dark Minds. So me and my friend Sigmund, who I talked about last week, we took over the reins for Dark Minds from Omar. And it was from Omar? No, it was from Joe Chen, who did fantastic. She did an amazing job on Dark Minds. But we took over for her. No, I think it was for Omar. So we did that style. I actually laid out the books and did the figures. And laid out the figures and did the backgrounds. And then Sigmund drew the figures. Because they didn't trust my figure work yet at the time. The very first book I did where it was all me. And this is a fun story too. Where it was me who penciled the entire thing. Okay? Was Warlands number 0 and Warlands number 1/2. Okay? For Dreamwave. Now, the funny thing about that was, so what happened was how I got that gig. Me and my friend Chris Saracini, who was my writing partner in when we were doing Transformers Armada, also a friend of mine today, big Eagles fan, for those of you who like NFL, big Eagles fan. We had a pitch for those 2 issues for Warlands. We had a pitch on a cool story idea that we had, and we pitched it to Pat. We actually, we had a meeting with him, and we sat in a boardroom, and then we pitched the idea. Fantastic. And then I remember Chris giving me a call. He goes, "Hey, James, Pat wants to meet up. He wants to talk about the story." Say, fantastic. So we went to the meeting, and Pat looked surprised I was there. Okay. Pat looked surprised I was there, but he didn't tell me not to come in the meeting. So we went in the meeting. And then he realized because I was there, he had to give me the penciling job. I think he liked the story, but wasn't planning on me penciling it. He didn't want me to pencil it. But because I was there, he's like, okay, you can pencil it. He goes, "Okay, James, I'll give you a shot, but you got to do your best on the figures, man." He was trying to pep me up. "You got to do the best on your figures, man." All right. He goes, "Okay, so for every figure you draw, go to Roger and get his approval on it. Get his approval." So that's what I did. So that was my very first fully penciled book. All me was Warlands number 0 and number 1/2. Okay. Now the very first series that I got to work on was Transformers Armada. Of course, we talked about that ad nauseum. Transformers Armada number 1, the number 1 selling comic book of 2003. Yeah, so that was the very first comic book that I did completely by myself. I did end up getting a background artist of my own afterwards. My good friend Edwin, who's actually at Ubisoft now these days. He's doing well for himself. Very proud of him. So that was that first work. My very first book at DC, that would be technically Tokyo Storm Warning that I did with Warren Ellis. We talked about that yesterday. If you talk about the actual DC proper, that would be Wonder Woman. That would be the very first book that I worked on for DC. For Top Cow Productions, that wasn't Dreamwave affiliated. Okay, that wasn't Dreamwave affiliated because we did the Dark Minds Witchblade crossover. That would be City of Heroes. I did a short story for City of Heroes, and I did an issue of City of Heroes for Top Cow. Now, I did have an opportunity, and I messed this up. I messed up an opportunity with Top Cow because after I worked on Wonder Woman, they offered me 6 issues of a comic. It totally slips in my mind what comic that was. I should have took that offer. I didn't take it because I was hoping that DC would give me more work. I was actually hoping that DC would give me more work, so I turned down the offer from Top Cow, and then DC didn't end up giving me work for a while, and I was left 6 months without any work afterwards because I turned down that one. It's like, I should have just took the job. It was only, it's only 6 months, man. If you do 6 months of work, you do the best job you possibly can with it, and people notice, that would have got me so much more work afterwards. I should have took that job. I really should have took that job. That's one of my regrets in comics. Again, another podcast topics, things I regret in my comic book career. That's one of them. I should have took that job. But again, I got a job doing City of Heroes for Top Cow. For Dark Horse, I only did one project for Dark Horse, and that was for Star Wars Tales. I did a quick short story in Star Wars Tales, about 14 pages, I would say. 14 pages of work in Star Wars Tales. Drawing the Vushas Von. The Vushas Von. I think that's what you call them. The Vushas Von. So that was for Top Cow. And then, of course, for Marvel. Then the first job I got... and again, I mentioned before that I was offered to do a Marvel title when I was working at Dreamwave, but I opted to do Transformers Armada instead. Again, hindsight's 2020, so part of me's like, what would have happened if I did take that Marvel offer? How different things would have been career-wise if I took that Marvel offer instead. But yeah. But yeah, that's what happened. So, let's see here. What else am I missing? So that was my first job for IDW Publishing. For my first job for IDW Publishing, that would be. So for IDW, I actually was in contention to be the first illustrator for their first Transformers book, Transformers Infiltration. I was in the running for it. When they got the license, at first I was a part of a pitch package with another company. They were pitching to produce the books for them, and IDW ended up deciding to go for it themselves. But then IDW contacted me directly and said, "Hey James, we want you. We would, you're in consideration. We kind of think you'd be good to do our first title." So I actually did a sample page for them, and then Hasbro picked who would be the artist, but they decided to go with EJ Sue, who is the only one actually. I think my friend Marcello, he actually is doing some work now for Skybound. So happy for him. We were both talking about it when we were at a con, but he's the only one who's actually getting regular work from Skybound. EJ, so he's actually a lot of fun. He's actually a very, very talented artist. Deserves everything that he's getting right now in terms of work from them. So happy for him. So he got the job, but then I got to do covers. So I did covers for the first 4 issues of Transformers Infiltration, and covers were enough because I ended up going to school after that anyway. So. That was it for that. While I was in school, I got a job. When I was in school, when I was working in film in Vancouver, and a guy contacted me because he wanted me to draw a comic book. It was called Dawn of the Dread Force. It was kind of his version of Transformers. It was very Transformers-like in that sense, and so he wanted me to pencil it. And, I was living by myself at the time. My family was still in the Toronto area because we were trying to figure out if it was good to move the whole family to Vancouver, which we ended up doing. So I had a lot of downtime because the life of a VFX artist is completely different than the life of a comic book artist. I'll talk about that life in another podcast. But with that, I agreed to do the book. Now, I ended up not doing it, becoming the penciler, because I was very slow. And I realized I couldn't handle the amount of work It was. So he actually hired somebody else who's actually now a prolific Marvel artist now today, Mr. Geraldo Sandoval. He ended up penciling the book, but I did covers for the book. I think I did 3 covers for that book as well. And then, so then I did more IDW work. So I think that's about it. Those are all the companies that I worked for in comics. If I'm missing one, let me know, guys. If I think I'm missing one, let me know. I also did, of course, I worked a little bit for Udon. I did Transformers G.I. Joe for Udon, but I got that job because of my good friend Eric Coe. He got me that job. So yeah. Yeah, that was me working in comics. I think for the most part, I'm trying to think of anything else. Like I have done the odd cover here and there, but that was about it. So those were my published comic book work. The first published work for those. How did I get those jobs? I talked about it yesterday. Okay, I definitely talked about it yesterday. So if you want to hear more about how I actually got the jobs, I talk about it in depth. In yesterday's podcast, so go ahead and check that out. Okay, so next questions, and if you guys have any questions, by all means, let me know in the chat. By the way, Mar says, "Is that Raphael?" No, this is I believe he's Mikey, right? As Michelangelo, but he has all the weapons because he's the last Ronin, right? So, let me get another question here going. So here is another question. By the way, if you're having questions, let me know in the chat. Okay, here's one. Okay, here's one. We could talk a little bit about this. This is a fun question here. And let me put up the question. So apologies, guys. I'm just putting up the question here. I think my computer froze. Whoops. All right. And as I'm fixing the title here, I'm trying to figure out what I'm going to talk about here because I can talk about deadlines here. So this one was more about handling deadlines. This question. Okay. So this question here is, what is one of the crazy deadlines from your time at Marvel and DC? Okay, that's a fantastic question. First of all, there were a lot of deadlines I blew. I blew a lot of deadlines. Again, my fault. No one to blame but me, guys. No one to blame but me. Whenever there's a deadline, no one to blame but the artist. Now, there are times maybe that the writer didn't have the script on time, because I remember in Tokyo Storm Warning. Oh, okay, this could be part of the story. Tokyo Storm Warning, guys, I messed up. I totally messed up that opportunity, guys. I really did. No question about it. That was one of the ones that I regret, and I messed up because I was super slow. I was so slow. They were so mad at me because I wasn't getting my pages in on time. I got married while I was doing that book, and I didn't tell them I was getting married. So like, James, we need the pages. Oh, I'm going my honeymoon tomorrow. Okay, can you give them the next day? Stuff like that, right? Not professional, guys. Not professional. You got to learn how to be professional. If you want to work professional, you have to be professional. But and then I would. The issue 3, what I would do is I would time my pages. I should write down the page. Oh, page took me 6 hours, hoping that would persuade them to give me more work. But they're not going to give me more work. I just proved I couldn't handle a monthly book, right? So that was dumb. But with that in mind, the book was late because also Warren was late with his scripts. And in essence, I was hoping that would be my out. Like, Warren's late with his scripts. That's why. No. The reason he was late with his scripts was because I was taking my sweet time doing the pages. And then I was missing like 2 pages, and I messaged Warren, hey, Warren, I could do this, and that, and then you could script it. And then I remember him emailing me in all caps, I'm not finished yet. So Warren was not happy with me. He was not happy with me at all. But in terms of actual crazy deadlines, like nothing stands out too much. I had crazy deadlines when I was working for Marvel. So the thing is, when you're working on crazy deadlines, and I remember David Finch was saying this before. I remember him saying this even before I got into the industry. I went to a panel where he was talking when he was working at Top Cow, and they were talking about deadlines. And he was like, oh, you start off doing 1 page a week, and then the next week you do 3 pages, and then the last week you do 20 pages. And then we all laughed, but it's kind of similar to that. It's kind of similar to that. Because on average, that's what would happen to me. I would get a book, and then I would do maybe 3 pages the first week. Maybe the first 3 weeks. I do about 3 pages a week, 3 to 4 pages a week. So that only brings you half the book. And I always end up doing half the book the final week. Half the book the final week. Now with that experience, that I would handle a book differently today. I would handle a book definitely differently today. But with that in mind, I would do things again. I would time pages, but I think the most work I've done in a day is like 4 pages. I've done 4 pages in a day before. So, okay, my apologies, guys. I'm running out of space on my. Just bear with me for a second, guys. I'm just gonna transfer over some footage, but hopefully you guys are learning something here. Hopefully you're learning something here, guys. 1 second here. Just transferring over some footage here. But thank you guys for following along or for listening. If you're listening on Apple Podcasts, please do hit me a follow and all of that. So while I'm actually clearing some space on my computer here, I should have done this earlier, guys. My apologies. Once again, let me do a quick plug. If any of you are interested in any commissions, please do email me, contact@jamesraysmedia.com. The link is down below, especially if you're going to be at one of my conventions coming up. You'd probably get a better commission if you pre-order it from me, because I'll have it done and then I'll bring it there and you just pick it up whenever you get there. So if you are interested in commission, whether at Montreal Comic Con, TFCon, Fan Expo Canada, just send me a message and hopefully we can go ahead and work that out, my friends. Okay. So hold on. I'm going to just throw a quick clean on my computer here. And I hope this works here. Oh, this works. Okay. So, and a huge shout out to everybody who's in the chat right now, who's watching me live. Thank you for watching me live. I really appreciate that here. And I would love to know your comments. What do you guys think about these podcasts so far? This is our 3rd one that we're doing in a row. I'm trying to do one every day. And we'll see. We'll see how it goes. BMW 3 Lover says, do you ever go to Chicago cons? I have, but not to exhibit. So unfortunately, no. I haven't. I haven't in terms of getting a booth. Like I went there to look for jobs, like a lot of us did. We all went to Comic Con. Like Chicago before, like Wizard World Chicago. That was the big one back in the day. That was just as big, if not bigger than San Diego Comic Con back in the day. I think now it's C2E2. You got that, and you have a Wizard World or Fan Expo Canada, Chicago now, over there. But okay, so just bear with me, guys. I'm just cleaning my computer a little bit here. Okay, I'll clean that. Okay, and hopefully that helps me record. Okay. So just bear with me, guys. I'm just going to start recording. Okay, back to the podcast here. So I was, while I was on my little break here, so Chicago Comic-Con, or Wizard World, that's where I met CB Cebulski. That's where you would go and really meet the publishers and look for work. They hardly go to cons these days. That's what I'm finding. You know, they don't have these talent searches like they used to. Like Fan Expo doesn't really have them anymore, so it's hard to find them now. So with that in mind, here's a question that I received. And again, if you guys have a question, by all means, let me know. The question is, and I'll read it while I replace the title. I'll read it while I replace the title here. Have I ever had to redo an entire page once? I have done that many times. Oops. Sorry, guys. 1 second here. I've had to do panels many times. I think all projects I've had to like redraw something. Like there have been times where I had to, like for example, do faces because, for example, there was a character I had when I was working in Transformers where I gave him this really cool expression on his face, but they asked me to change it because they told me that he would never make that expression. Right? Even though people who see the original art thought it was really cool. Well, it's really cool because they never expected that character to make that expression because he doesn't make that expression. So that I get. But the biggest one came from when I was working on Wonder Woman. And I've told this story many times about how DC Comics is very particular in how you draw their characters. Of course, they're iconic, right? Everybody knows who Superman is. Everyone who knows who Batman is. For the most part, everybody knows who Wonder Woman is. So these characters are so iconic, you got to draw them in a way that's recognizable to everybody in that sense. And they had a huge problem with the way that I drew Superman and Batman. I'll even say Batman as well, okay? Batman not as much as the Superman. Like the Batman, what I did for the Batman was I drew it the way Alex Ross drew Batman. Alex Ross drew Batman with pupils. He drew him with pupils. If you look at his some of his books that he's worked on with Batman, he always drew Batman with pupils. So I wanted to draw Batman with pupils when I was working on Wonder Woman. That they didn't like. They didn't like that. And then they had a huge problem with the way I drew Superman. I had so much trouble drawing Superman for some reason. I just couldn't get the face right. They kept telling me to draw Superman's face. I remember I did it so many times. And it's unfortunate because I knew the editor of Justice League was watching how I was handling this book. Eddie Berganza was watching. And because Ivan, my editor, he told me that he was looking at the pages. He was looking forward to see how I do with the Justice League. So they were thinking about me doing these bigger books at the time. But I kind of pooped the bed a little bit, as we say. I kind of pooped the bed a little bit. Because I couldn't draw Superman properly. I couldn't draw him properly. I couldn't get the face right. Or in the style that they wanted. Because I kept redrawing his face. And then finally they said, okay, this is fine, James. That's fine. We got to go publish. I'm like, fantastic, great. And they didn't tell me, but when that issue came out, they got another artist to come and redraw all my faces. I don't know if it was the inker. I have a feeling it was the inker. They asked him to draw it because the style was very similar to the previous artist of the book. So either they got the inker to go and try to fix up the faces, or they got that artist to come and just kind of fix up the faces. Because it looked very similar to that artist who was before me on that book. That was a little bit of an ego blow. I won't lie, guys. That was very much an ego blow. It was kind of sad, because it's like, oh man, I couldn't handle it. I couldn't handle drawing Superman. So, but I will say, one thing that did come from that Wonder Woman run, even though that didn't lead to anything else. So in essence, I should have known I wasn't going to get any work. Because remember I told you I turned down that offer from Top Cow? Now I'm realizing I should have took it. I should have seen it coming that they weren't going to give me any more work afterwards. I should have seen it coming. But regardless, when I drew my last page, that's when after I drew the last page and sent it out, that's when my wife went into labor. And my daughter was born that day. So I actually could use the break. I could use the break afterwards. So I had the time to take care of my daughter. Maybe that was why. That was why I didn't get a job right away after that. So I think that was the most blatant version of me having to redraw something. But there was always something I had to redraw, or panels I had to redraw. When I was working when I did Star Wars, when I did Star Wars Tales, there were panels in that. That particular publisher or editor, they didn't care in terms of, if they thought something worked, it worked. So there were, for example, panels of mine that I drew that they actually digitally flipped because they felt it looked better. So they mirror imaged the panel because it worked better, whether it would be with the word balloons or whatever. They actually went ahead and did that without even telling me they were going to do that. So that I understand. I get it. It's their book. So I try not to be too attached to the work I produce for somebody, because I know there will always come a time where somebody's going to come and ask me to change things, So that's why I don't, if it's not my own work, if it's not my own IP that I'm working on, I don't get too attached to how I draw things. I really don't. Like, I get more upset when, I'm, if it's like a big piece that I did and they want me to redo it, but they saw the process. That's why, guys, it really is a worthwhile exercise, if you're drawing comics, to fully lay out your book and actually get the writer and the what's called the editor to okay it, just so there's no issues down the road. There's no issues with how the book's laid out. Like there was like, for example, DC was also upset with me when I did Wonder Woman, because there was one part where a creature was debuted, and for some reason I took the previous page and I turned it into like a double page splash because I thought it looked cool. And then I remember my editor going, "Hey James, this looks cool, but you kind of revealed the gag, right? I revealed the character too early by making a double page spread." So they weren't too happy with it. I tried to digitally alter it, but they said, "No, that's fine. We'll just go with what you originally did." See, I should have told you guys. Like, I should have known the writing was on the wall. I should have took that other job. Again, now I'm thinking about it. But yeah, there you go. Let's see here. Yeah. Let's see here. Christopher says, "How come comic books are not sold at gas stations anymore?" I wish. Those were the days. I got Batman 497 from where did I get that? I did get that from a convenience store. from a spinner rack in a convenience store. Batman 40 because it was sold out. A regular comic shop, but I saw it in the convenience store. But it didn't have the flap on it. There's a flap of the book that it would have. And I think what I did was I took out the staples. I bought a second printing. I took out that flap and I put it on the newsprint. I was trying to get innovative. It's not like I sold it. Like I still have it. But yeah, I miss the old convenience stores. Comic books, they're not in convenience stores anymore. You know where you can find comic books today? The dollar store. I was actually very surprised in Dollarama here. It's not as much anymore, but the past 3 years, they would sell trade paperbacks in the Dollarama for $4. Literally $4. And they were good books too. I bought a few. I hardly buy comic books these days, but I went to buy there because it's so cheap, right? I bought a lot of David Finch stuff. It's so cheap. Okay, here's a question here. What's the biggest misconception about working in comics? Okay. What's the biggest misconception? I would, and maybe some of you guys can help me out with this. If you guys have anything on your own that you would like to throw in. But number one, I would say one of the biggest misconceptions about working in comics. Number one, the biggest job is not the cover. The biggest job is the storytelling. Okay, some guys don't realize that. They don't realize that. Number two, it's very easy to get burned out drawing the same character over and over and over and over again. It really is. It's fun to draw Wolverine, but if you have to draw Wolverine 1,000 times, it becomes not so fun. It's not as exciting as it sounds. Okay? That's why it's hard to have variety. Ask my fellow Transformers artists. Because usually, for us Transformers artists, when we're at a con, usually what do people want us to draw? Transformers. That's all they want us to draw is Transformers. So every time we get something that's not a Transformer, we're excited. I know my buddy Alex Milne. He gets so excited when someone commissions him to do something different. And then he's like, oh yeah, not a Transformer. Not a Transformer, he would say. So, that's definitely one. One misconception is that once you're in, you'll constantly get work. No, quite the opposite. Once you get your foot in the door, there's two parts. One, getting your foot in the door. Number two, keeping your foot in the door. It's really hard to keep jobs. It's really hard to sustain a comic book career. Okay? So that's why with every book that you do, treat it like it's your last. That's the one thing. If you're going to learn from my mistakes as a comic book artist, don't blow a deadline, dudes. Do not blow. That's if you want a way to not get another job after, blow a deadline. Blow a deadline. I've blown so many deadlines, and I was lucky enough to get other chances afterwards. But blowing those deadlines, those are killers to your career, man. Don't do it. Do not do it. Here's another misconception. That work comes after a job comes after the first one's done. No, jobs come all at the same time, and you don't understand how many times that's happened to me, where I had no work for like 6 months, and then all of a sudden I had 3 jobs come to me at the same time. 3 jobs, and I was like, "Where were you guys? At least 3 months ago. Where were you guys? I needed you 3 months ago. Why are you coming now?" You know what I mean? So that's definitely one. That's definitely one for sure. So I will say though, today, the life of a comic artist today though, definitely is more in the convention circuit now. So that is part of it. And again, we'll probably do a separate podcast about the convention circuit later. Now that I have more experience today, then now that I'm back doing the convention circuit, part of me wishes I was actually doing the convention circuit when I was popular in YouTube. It would have been a lot more fun. Maybe I would have had a bigger line. if I did when I was more popular in YouTube, right? So yeah, that is that question there. Am I pretty much done? Not really. There's other things I want to do to this piece, for sure here. So there's lots to do here. Let's see, Strider. I'm good, Strider. Good to see you, my friend. Good to see you. Let's see here. Janine thinks I should do an Optimus Prime and Bumblebee piece. I will be doing a Bumblebee for sure. I'm actually might be doing that sooner than later. Tomorrow, guys, I might be doing a longer live stream tomorrow, depending on my time. I do want to get like one big piece done this week, and most likely a Transformer, because I want to get 2 more giant Transformers pieces done before TFCon. So we will see how that goes. Okay, but let's see here. Another question. Let's see here. Here's an interesting question here. Okay, and I'm just gonna put it up here. And once again, thank you guys for watching and for listening to the podcast. It really means a lot to me. And I am hoping to make these better every day. I'm trying to figure out how I can make these more entertaining for you guys. So if you have any suggestions, I would definitely love to hear them. Okay, as I'm trying to put this question up here. And as I'm finishing this last Ronin piece here. Okay, that should be fine. Okay, so apologies, guys. I'm just trying to save out my drawing here. So we will get to a Q&A soon. So pretty much after this next question, I was trying to answer this next question, I'm going to take a little bit of a break. And I'm going to show you another interview with an artist. An interview I've done in the past. If you have been a long-time follower, you might have seen this interview already. Okay, come on. And while I go ahead and make my kids' lunch. But that's also a great time. If you have any questions, please do put it into the chat, the live chat right now. And I will do my best to answer all of your questions here. My apologies. I think my Photoshop crashed. Okay. Well, I'll just read the question then. So this question here is, did working for Marvel and DC help or hurt your YouTube growth? Okay. What it did was, working for Marvel and DC, it gave me credibility. Now, am I the most prolific Marvel artists in the world? No, absolutely not. Absolutely not. Of course, even today in social media, there are guys working in the industry today that are YouTubers, that are they are what's it called, legends in the sport. I always mention Frank Cho. Maybe that's a guy I should interview for my channel. By the way, he'd probably be a guy who would be interested in interviewing on my channel, because I'd love to pick his brain on everything he's done. But what it did do was give me credibility. The fact that I have worked professionally. I have worked for Marvel, DC, not just in film, but also in marketing art and all of that. Just because the fact that I have worked on that gives people pause more, because that's something that a lot of artists, especially at the time I started, couldn't say. Not a lot of people could say that they work for Marvel and DC. They have done professional work for Marvel and DC. So it definitely helped. Because Marvel is so recognizable, right? The brand, Marvel DC brands are so recognizable that that it helps in stopping people and actually be interested to listen to what I have to say. Okay? Even though the information maybe I have is maybe a little older, okay, than your average guy, okay, or less up to date than the other Marvel artists. At the same time, people will listen because I have had that experience. That's something people cannot take away from me, is my experience with Marvel and DC. That's better than Joe Schmo here drawing Wolverine. No matter how good that person draws Wolverine, the fact that I was able to get those jobs, that helped in terms of my credibility. So saying me doing, dad draws his kid's design, changing that to Marvel artist draws his kid's design, that's different. Already, they know just by that title, without even looking at it, that a professional artist who has done work for Marvel is going to be trying to draw this design. That's way more clickable than just a dad pro artist draws his kid's design. Okay, it's a little bit more clickable. All right, not saying exponentially more clickable, but clickable, So, Strider says, could you ask Dan Mora for an interview as well? I'll interview anyone who's professional. Right. So actually, I'm hoping that when I am at Montreal Comic Con, depending on who I'm sitting beside, maybe I could interview them. Todd McFarlane's going to be at Montreal Comic Con. Maybe I could get him. But again, it's up to them. He's a busy guy. So if I could ask them, they'd be interested in doing a quick interview with me. By all means. If he does do an interview with me, I'm going to give him a picture of Spawn. I'm going to draw him a new picture of Spawn to give to him. So maybe I'll ask Tony, and then I'll tell Tony that I'll give him. I'm gonna do the most detailed drawing of Spawn and want to give it to him, and I'll definitely plug Montreal Comic Con and Ottawa, like all the Comic Cons. Maybe we could do that. We'll see. We'll see if he'd be interested in something like that. We will see how that goes. Okay, so that's that question. That is that question. Let me see if there's one more question. Okay, I think that is most of my questions. So I guess the onus is now on you guys. Okay, I still have a lot to do on this piece here, so we are not done by a long shot here. We're definitely not done by a long shot. So if you guys have any questions, please do write them in the chat right now, and I will get you questions soon. But in the meantime, I'm going to take a quick break. Give my voice a break. Go quickly make lunch for my daughter. It's one of their last days of school here. And while I do that, why don't you watch this interview I have with, speaking of a prolific comic book artist. This is a quick interview I did with a friend of mine. His name is Jason Fabok. That's how you say him. Jason Fabok. Professional artist for DC. Longtime artist for DC. It's weird because, well, I'll say it was weird. It's funny. We're all in the same realm of style here. I would consider my style in that sort of David Finch, Jason Fabok style. I know Jason used to do work for David before branching off on his own, and now he's a superstar artist in his own right. This is an interview I did with him quite a few years ago for the channel, and I'm happy to share this with you right now. So this will be about 16 minutes. But if you have a question, and Knuckle Sandwich already has a great question, I'll be answering that when I get back. If you have a question you would like me to answer, please do let me know in there. But even before I go, I would like to quick mention to the top fans right now. For those of you who don't know, YouTube has this thing now where we have our top fans. So let me give you the quick rundown of who the top fans. I will let you know the top 5 top fans right now, and I'll mention the final. How do you become a top fan? It's how often that you somebody super chats, if somebody puts questions into the comments, if you share the video, all of that counts. So the top 5 top fans. Number 5 is Myth Dusters or Christopher. Number 4 is Bullshark. Number 3 is Timon. Number 2 is Mario. Excuse me. And number 1 is my boy Knuckle Sandwich. Number 1 right now. So those are my top fans right now. But to be honest, all of you guys are my top fans. So thank you guys for being here today. So right now, just I'll be back. This video is going to be roughly around, I'd say about 16 minutes. So enjoy the interview. If you have any questions about the interview as well, please do let me know in the comments, and I will be right back. But enjoy this interview I have with my friend, Mr. Jason Fabok. He's awesome. I'm an artist. Now what? Do you want to be a superstar artist? Huh? You want to work for DC Comics? You want to draw Superman, Batman, Wonder Woman, Justice League, and get paid? Well, this guy did. Oh boy, did he. This is my good friend. His name is Jason Fabok, and this is a classic interview I did with him at Fan Expo Canada a few years ago, and he dropped so much knowledge on how to get into the comic book industry, and a lot of what he said then still applies today. You don't want to miss this great interview I had with my friend, Jason Fabok. Hi, I'm with my friend. Are we friends? No.
Yeah,
Sure, we are friends. Sure. We are friends. I'm here with my friend, Jason Fabok. Fabok, amazing artist, illustrator. He works for DC Comics. Jason, how are you today?
I'm great. Doing very well. Yeah.
Okay, fantastic. Now, Jason, I know that you have had an extensive career in professional comic books. Why don't you let our viewers know what are you currently working on right now and what projects you have in the pipeline?
Well, recently I just finished up a really long run on Justice League, and that project really burnt me out. I was working like crazy hours on that thing, and so we Jeff Johns and we were working on that book. We finished that up, and over the summer I just kind of took a break. I took a nice summer vacation for the last couple of months, and it was really just to kind of recharge my batteries and spend time with family and all that kind of stuff. So actually, the DC just announced I'm going to be doing a new mini-series, Justice League versus Suicide Squad, with writer Joshua Williamson. And an interesting fact about that is we both actually broke in on the same exact book into the industry, 5-6 years ago. So it'll be really cool to work with him on that book. And then I got a bunch of other stuff kind of going on in the background, but those things aren't being ready to really be announced just yet. But I can tease that there's a really big project I'm going to be doing next year, hopefully, and I'm really excited for that one.
And we're excited to see what that project is for sure, because a lot of my viewers, they are aspiring artists. Can you please tell us about your work history, like when you broke in, what titles you've worked on?
Yeah, I broke in around 2010, I think, and what I did, I kind of have an odd way that I broke into the industry, and that was I was working with artist David Finch, who readers probably know from Marvel and DC. And he lives in my hometown, and so I sent my portfolio to him just to see if he could give me a couple pointers, and that turned into like a 6-month boot camp of comic books. I would go to his house every other day, and he would show me kind of, we're going to draw heads today, we're going to draw hands and feet, and then he would really critique me big time, and I would go home and I would rework everything, and 6 months later, he sent my portfolio into DC, and I was able to get a job. And so I started off doing 2 fill-in issues, Superman, Batman issue 70 and 71. And then I was not used to the workload of what a DC comic, what they expect out of you doing a book so short time. I just couldn't handle it. So I ended up taking myself out of the game, and I went and I worked for Aspen Comics, a smaller publisher, but they were willing to give me the time to experiment and grow and kind of figure out how to draw a comic book in a month and the whole process of working on something like that. And so, after doing that for a couple months, I was able to go back to DC. I've worked on Batman the Dark Knight. I've worked on Detective Comics, and I did Batman Eternal, and Justice League was the last big thing that I've done, and a couple other issues here and there. But I've been very fortunate to be able to work on some really cool titles, really big characters, and with really good writers and collaborators.
Wow, that's what a way to break in, for sure. Especially that's fantastic for David Finch to bring you on pretty much as an apprentice. Is that correct? So would you be doing backgrounds for him or anything like that? Or
that was the idea, but at that time he was working at Marvel, and he was nearing the end of his contract. He was just doing a bunch of covers, and then he made a move over to DC, and he wasn't working, again, he was working on covers, so he didn't need a background assist. And so that's why he was just like, hey, I think your stuff is good enough, let's send it in and let's see what happens. You can't hurt.
How did tell me, how did you develop that portfolio that you guys sent to Marvel? Like, how did you work? Like, what was your work schedule like? Did you have a job at the time? How did you arrange your schedule, and what did you put into your portfolio to send to DC?
At that time I wasn't working. for that 6 months, I kind of just sucked it up. I moved in with my mom again, and I just focused 100% of my day on my comic book portfolio. I know a lot of people can't do that, but I don't know. It was my dream, and I just felt like I needed to go for it, and I was able to do that. I was fortunate in that respect. As for the portfolio, Dave came up with a little Batman story, and I literally submitted 6 pages. They were just all story pages. It was a little Batman story where there was there was a family, a man, a woman, and a child, and they were driving their car through Gotham, and they get mugged, and the car gets stolen, and the baby's in the back seat, and Batman comes in and he rescues the baby, and then he ends up chasing down these criminals and catches them. It was a very simple story, but the one important thing that it did was it showed I could draw a city, cars, a family of normal people, a child, a superhero, some villains, and there was a scene with like some trees in it, so I could do a little bit of foliage. But it kind of captured that whole thing without any words. It was just all, and that's what they're looking for in a portfolio. They want to see that you can draw everything, because you're going to be thrown everything. The only thing I probably didn't draw on that was the animals, but I feel all my other things were strong enough. I didn't need to show that aspect of it. But yeah, like, a lot of times I think fans think they need to hand in like tons and tons and tons of work to see, like, show all these, covers and pinups, and they're looking for story. They want it. The most jobs are in stories. Unless you are an unbelievable painter and can do incredible covers, they usually aren't going to just hire you for covers. They want to hire you to do interior pages. So you need to come up with a little story that's simple and that shows all of that. And then as I worked on that story, I think I probably put a little bit more time into it than I would normally have done. I spent like maybe 3 or 4 days per page, but I wanted to make sure it was the best I could possibly do. And but the only thing is, they expect you to do a page a day, so that's what was shocking when I got in the industry. It's like, now I got to draw a page a day, and that was the real shocker. But yeah, that would be my advice for a portfolio.
That's fantastic advice for sure. Can you let our viewers know, because a lot of them haven't worked for a company like DC, what is it like to actually be, what is your day-to-day like, and what's it like working with a company like DC in comic books?
Yeah, my day-to-day, I mean, I work every day. Sometimes I work most weekends. I mean, you have 4 weeks, most of the time you have 4 weeks to draw a 22-page book. So you got to pretty much do 5 pages a week and then find time to do 2 extra pages, and probably a cover or 2 in there. And so you're working, steady every single day, and you have to have the discipline to work, 8 in the morning till 6, 7 at night sometimes, and do that on weekends and vacation days, holidays. It takes a lot of sacrifice on your behalf and on your family's behalf too. You can't just get up and go wherever you want. The deadline is important, and there's no wiggle room on the deadline. You're usually working a month ahead of the book actually coming out. So if you screw up, it's going to ruin the whole assembly line. And so there's a lot of responsibility on you. But as I worked through the industry, and as I've done this for quite a few years, you get used to that, and you're able to balance those things, and you get quicker, and you find, okay, now I can take this weekend off, but I know I'm going to have to crunch later on, and that kind of a thing. I kind of have a weird work thing where what I do is I start a page. Let's say I start a page around 1 o'clock in the afternoon. I'll work on it till about 6, and then the next morning I'll finish up that page by doing some of the harder panels in the morning when I have the most energy. I'll finish that page, then around after lunch, I'll start a new one, and I'll do a couple of the easier panels that I know I can whip out. Then the next morning, I get up, I have my energy again and my creativity back, I'll do the harder ones. And that's how I work. So I kind of work on 2 separate pages in one day, but I'm finishing one and then I start another. And I found that just works for me, and it allows me to focus in the morning, and then I can kind of phone it in a little bit more in the afternoon when I'm tired, So,
Right.
yeah.
Okay. Okay, great. So just a couple more questions. So first of all, like I know for people who just get into the industry, sometimes like a publisher will give them the one book and then they're looking for work after that and while they're working on the same book and all that. But you're in a situation, you're under contract, is that correct?
Yes.
Yes. So how does that in particular work? Does DC provide, like they say we're going to provide you this many issues? How does that work, like the exclusive deal?
Yeah, every exclusive is a little bit different from what I've heard, but for my contract usually consists, they give you, we're going to guarantee you this certain amount of books every year, and if you want to work that in there, I can say, well, I want to do so many covers per year. You come up with your page rates and a term. So I've been signing 2-year terms at a time. I could go more if I really wanted to, but I find the 2-year term allows me to work for 2 years and then renegotiate. I have no plans to leave DC anytime soon, but that kind of a term would allow an artist to maybe, hey, I want to go do a creator-owned book at Image, or I want to work for Marvel. Like, you can jump around and do things like that. But that's, for me, that's been the standard, like, for the last couple of years, 2-year terms at a time. And, that's, there's not really much magic to it. I can't work for any other companies unless DC gives me permission to do so. But that's the standard, I guess, term. But I've heard that there's different ones for. Sometimes the contract might be for issues, like you have to do 25 issues over 2 years. Yeah, I don't know, and so that might be a different kind of contract. But every company's different.
What would be your advice for them to break in today? Like, how do they contact editors? How would they use social media? What would your advice be to them?
Yeah, with today, the internet, there's a lot of opportunities for everybody around the world. DC and Marvel are hiring people from the Philippines and Brazil and Canada and the United States. It's a worldwide game now. My suggestion would be for these kinds of things is sending your portfolio out to everybody. Don't be picky. Don't shoot for DC. Like, I was very blessed to have that opportunity to get my first job with DC, but that was also because Dave Finch vouched for me. He knew I could handle the workload. He knew what kind of a person I was. And so I had that unique opportunity. But for most people, it's, hey, I'm going to, I don't know, I send your books out to Aspen and to Dark Horse and to some of the smaller publishers who might be willing to take a chance on you and work. You're going to have to work your way through the trenches. It's like you're going to find like the job is going to be very unforgiving for a while, and you're really working hard on things you might not have a lot of passion for. But if you treat every project like it's something special and precious, they'll be able to see that. And the editors that work for those smaller companies usually have connections with the bigger companies, and the bigger companies will ask those editors, what kind of a person is he? How hard does he work? Does he agree with? Is he agreeable? Does he fight you on things? Like, you want to just pretty much say, yes, I'll do it, and just keep rolling and work hard for whoever you're working hard for. And be humble. That's another thing. Stay humble. Ask editors for the opportunity to critique your work. Like, see what they can tell you. I still do that. I still ask my editors, can you critique my work? What can I do better? And they'll tell you, and then that helps you become a better artist and rise up quicker throughout the ranks. So, yeah, send your stuff through. Sending stuff to comic artists through the internet. I get a lot of people doing that, but it's hard to critique that kind of stuff over the internet, and it's hard to like put the time into really giving a good critique. But the companies that are looking to hire people for jobs, if you ask them honestly, like, please give me a good critique of what I need to work on. They might be harsh with you, but if you can take that, you need to learn how to take that criticism, but then turn it around and work on those things. It'll make you a stronger artist in the end. And hopefully that'll lead to a career in comic books.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Jason. That was amazing. I'm sure that helped all of my viewers for sure. Where can my viewers follow you on social media?
Well, I'm on Twitter, and I got a Facebook fan page thing. Just look up my name on there. And I also have a blog. So if you look me up, jasonfadlock.blogspot.com. you can contact me on there. And I haven't updated in a little while. I've been kind of bad with that, but I usually like to post, my process of how I've worked through pages from pencil sketch to inks to color. So, I hope, and I do that for young aspiring artists to see like kind of what I'm going through and hopefully help them to, to make their dream come true as well.
Thank you so much, Jason. We look forward to everything you have in store, especially Justice League versus Suicide Squad. It's going to be awesome. Thank you so much, and thank you for your time today.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much to Jason. How insightful was that, okay? What was your favorite drop of knowledge? Let me know in the comments down below. And also let me know, who else would you like me to interview? I would like to know. Let me know in the comments down below, because we are relaunching the Box Office Artist Podcast. Because you might think at home, hey, I want to get into art, though I don't know what type of art I want to do. I'm going to be interviewing artists with different careers in art, so you can decide which career could be right for you. Make sure you subscribe to the entire James Ray's Media Network so you don't miss a single video. And thank you guys for watching. You guys are the best. My name is James, and I'm your best friend.
I'm an artist. Now what?
Do you...
Alrighty, everyone. Hopefully you learned something from that. I'll be honest, I haven't seen the interview in a while, so I have no idea what he said. So just bear with me. So why don't we go ahead and answer some questions. But first of all, I do want to apologize to my friend Timon there in the chat. I saw earlier that you were salty. And I apologize, my friend. I did not see your super chat, but thank you so much for the super chat. I really, really appreciate it. And thank you for the support, my friend. He was asking me if I could be on his podcast, I believe. It was the Wiener Cast, I think it was called. I will say that I can't really commit because I have about 5 podcasts that I've agreed to, and I haven't been on yet. So I'm not going to be taking any podcasts until I appear on those podcasts, because some of these guys have been asking me for years to be on their particular podcast, though. But I will give you a little plug there, then, my friend. So I'm not sure what kind of things you talk about, but my good luck to you, my friend, for your podcast, the Wiener Cast. Okay, good luck to you with that cast. Okay, and maybe down the line when I'm available for another podcast, by all means, we could definitely talk about it. All right, but anyway. Let's go ahead, and we are going to ask questions. We see Knuckle Sandwich here has the very first question here. And again, if you have a question that you would like answered, by all means, let me know in the live chat. Also, go ahead and put your questions in on the previous podcast. In fact, let me quickly look at the previous podcast, because I did not, I'll be honest, I did not check the previous podcast. But Knuckle Sandwich has a good question. Is there a franchise you always wanted to work on but never had the chance? So a few a few actually fit into that category. One franchise I would love to work on, because it's definitely something that would be right up my alley. My alley would be Power Rangers. To be honest, I'm a huge Power Rangers fan. So if Boom Studios would ever give me the shot, I would love the shot to actually do, because it's everything. Mechs, Power Rangers itself, creatures, that I'd love to do. I'd love to work on a Godzilla book, even a Turtles book for IDW if they were ever interested in me joining, if hiring me for anything. And I'd definitely love the opportunity. In terms of Marvel and DC, let's see here. Let me think now. Marvel and DC, and I'm just checking if I have any things here. Let me think. What can I work on Marvel and DC? Like, to be honest, any of the bigger titles, I'd be happy. Like, just the amount of trust you would get working for any Marvel DC title. I will say, though, in my later years now, I probably would not want to do a team book. So if they gave me, like, if they offered me, like, Justice League or X-Men or something like that, of course I would definitely, of course I'd do it. and I'd be happy to do it. It wouldn't be my number one choice though, because those take a lot of work. Those books, a team book, anyone who's done a team book before, because you're dealing with multiple characters at a time, sometimes multiple characters in a scene at a time. It's much more complicated than doing a single character. Not saying for a single character book there aren't multiple characters in the scene. Of course there are, but definitely not as much as before, right? So, Knuckle Sam says, "I wish you worked on the Power Rangers movie." I did talk about that. The company I was working for actually was working on Power Rangers at the time, and I was the only Power Rangers fan. I had a poster of Power Rangers on my desk, and they didn't give me a shot to work on. I wanted a shot to work on. I saw all the previs. I saw the Megazord before anyone else did, but they never gave me a shot to actually go ahead and work on the movie. My good friend Muja, she was the main matte painter in the movie, but it's because they needed me. I was working on a movie called The Promise with Oscar Isaacs. At the time, I was the main matte painter, so I needed to work on that particular show. So unfortunately, that's the way it rolled. So I did not get a shot. I did get a shot on Fan 4 Stick though. I did do a few shots on Fan 4 Stick, so at least I got to say I worked on Fan 4 Stick. At least I got to say I worked on a Marvel movie. I guess they're all Marvel movies at the time, right? So all the time. Let's see here. So yeah, that is. Let me think if there's any other book I would work on. I'd say that, like, because for example, it would be the same be said to work on Voltron, for example. I know. I wouldn't mind working on, like, Dynamite is working on a whole bunch of retro books, right? Like they're doing Silverhawks, they're doing. I think they're doing Street Shark books. They're doing Street Sharks now. Is that them or is that IDW? I forgot. One of the others doing Street Sharks. So, anything retro, I would love to do as well. That would be a lot of fun to do. So, yeah, a lot of options out there. A lot of options out there for sure. Let's see here. And I'm just checking if there's any other questions here. I think that's most of the questions, which is totally fine. Totally fine. So you guys were helping me going ahead and drawing this particular piece here. This is The Last Ronin. So I wanted to draw a Turtles piece, and this is not done by any means. This is definitely something that needs a lot more work to do. Okay, guys. So anyway, we're probably going to finish off this podcast if there's no other questions for today. I do want these podcasts to be concise, and some are asking why I'm not as interactive in the chat as I am usually in these streams. Usually I'm more interactive in the before, mainly because I didn't really have a plan going into these streams. The plan for the stream is just to go here and draw. Where now I come in with something I want to talk about. Now I come in with a purpose, and I don't need to finish the drawing during these streams. The drawing is just for something for you guys to look at while I'm actually doing doing the podcast itself. So I need to keep the conversation going in the podcast as much as possible. So that is my goal, and that is my hope with the podcast. And hopefully you enjoy it. Hopefully it's an experience that you can listen to even when you're driving. You don't even need to see that I'm drawing this, this Last Ronin here, and you could still enjoy all the work I'm doing right now. So I really appreciate that. So Christopher Mythbusters threw in a super chat here. Thank you for the super chat. You should interview Tony Menzie. Tony, another OG, an OG from the channel. So it's been great. It's been great, right? By all means, right? Let's see here. A good friend of mine here, Ritsu, asked a cool question, and good to see you, Ritsu. I'm not sure. Will you be at Montreal Comic Con next week? I will be there. I have a table there next week, so I'm actually pretty excited. If you're not there, I will also be at Ottawa Comic Con as well, so it'd be nice to see you again, my friend. Good to see you. So just bear with me, guys. I'm just putting his question, but he has a very interesting question here as well. Okay, and I'm just going to put up his question here, and then, by all means, if any of you have any other questions, by all means, let me know. But thank you for joining in, Ritsu, and I hope things are well with you, my friend. Ritsu's a very talented artist in his own right as well. So he asks, his question is, let me zoom in. You can see it there at the bottom. At Ottawa Comic Con last year, when you did commission, you said that a vehicle would take way longer than a character to draw. What factors make a vehicle so much more difficult? And the thing is, with a vehicle, it depends on the type of vehicle, Ritsu. So it all depends on the type of vehicle. So it also depends on experience. It all depends on experience and how much experience you have with drawing both. If you're more comfortable drawing vehicles are going to be faster for you. If you're more comfortable drawing humans are going to be faster for you. Okay? So it all depends on you and your things. Okay? So for me personally, I've had a lot of experience drawing vehicles in that sense. But the thing with vehicles, though, you are definitely more attached, or you're more you have to adhere to perspective way more when it comes to vehicles, because it's a lot more obvious when perspective is off when it's a vehicle as opposed to a person. Sometimes a person, when you draw a person in foreshortening, sometimes you could get away with things, you could push things to make things look closer to you and all of that stuff, and it doesn't have to be picture perfect for it to work. When it comes to a vehicle, people can relate to that more. They understand perspective more. And when I say that, they know when a vehicle is off. They just know. I always say when someone's drawing a car, make sure the wheels look like wheels. I always say that. When somebody's drawing a car, don't ignore drawing those wheels. Don't rush out those wheels, because the wheels are really what makes the difference between a bad and a good car drawing, is those wheels. Because if it doesn't look like a wheel, if the ellipse doesn't look like an ellipse, or the circle doesn't look like a circle, people know that right away. They could tell immediately. And then they'll be like, oh, the drawing's bad, right? And they'll ignore everything else if the wheels are wrong. Okay, so that's what makes a vehicle a little bit more difficult. It's just because perspective is way more apparent when you're drawing a vehicle as opposed to drawing a face or drawing a human body. Perspective is way more noticeable when you're drawing a vehicle, but that's why. That is why. Okay, let's see what other questions we have here. Let's see here. Okay, you'll definitely be at Ottawa Comic Con. Well, good to see you there, my friends. Will we be doing the Altered Beast piece? Maybe for sure. Yeah. Christopher asked, did I work on the 2005 Fantastic Four film or the 2007 Fantastic Four Rise of the Silver Surfer? Nope, I worked on the 2013, 2014, 2015 Epic Fan Four Stick. That's the one I worked on with Michael B. Jordan. And what's his name again? What's his name? It's the guy who plays Mr. Fantastic. I forgot. Well, Michael B. Jordan as Johnny Storm. Yeah, I remember that movie, guys. I remember that movie. I told this before because I saw Doctor Doom before anyone else, and when I saw Doctor Doom, the first thing in my head was, oh, is our job to fully replace him with CG? Because I'm like, there's no way he looks like this. There's no way he looks like this. And it turned out that's how he looked. I'm like, are we fully changing him to like a CG version of Dr. Doom? I asked that. They're like, no, we're just making the glows pop and stuff, putting in the background. I'm like, what? I'm like, what? So it is what it is. In that sense, but that's it. So anyway, guys, I think we will call it a stream at this particular point. So thank you guys for all of your questions. For those of you who watched the entire stream, I am going to go finish up this particular last Ronin on my own. We're going to put a nice background in here and all that stuff. It's going to be a lot of fun to do. For those of you who are watching live, thank you for watching live. I really do appreciate it. Thank you for all your questions. If you are watching this later, or if you're watching on Apple Podcasts, I would love to know your thoughts on this podcast. Let me know in the comments down below or from whatever platform that you're watching this on. Any suggestions, questions you have, let me know also tomorrow as well. And then maybe I can include them in tomorrow's stream as well. And if you're watching on Apple Podcasts and all that stuff, make sure you hit a like and do you like on there, or leave a review, an honest review. I would really appreciate it if you do. And yeah, and any comments, questions, suggestions, I'm all ears, because this is our podcast. This is the Box Office Artist Podcast. Before I go, I just want to quickly read out the top 10. Let me just switch this out here. Top 10. Okay, and I'm just making sure that we're in the right YouTube account here. Top 10 fans. The top fans according to my live stream here. Okay, so let me just go to the live stream quickly here on my thing here. Okay, just bear with me now. Okay, live. By the way, guys, next week I'm gonna have more actual videos coming out, so look out for that as well. I'm gonna start putting out a little more single videos every day next week. I'm just trying to get that all finished up. But if you guys are ready for the top fans, here we go. Top fans. And by the way, when I say these things, it gives your full name. So I forgot your username. So forgive me if the username is different. Okay. So starting with number 10 is Ryokuro Kiba. Okay. Number 9 is DFL. I assume that's DFL Artist, right? Number 8, Pierre Lewis. Thank you very much. Number 7, Strider 10. Good to see you, my friend. Number 6, it's Ritsu. Thank you again, Ritsu, and looking forward to see you at Ottawa Comic Con. Number 5 is Bullshark. Thank you, my friend Bullshark. Number 4 is Mario, always holding on the fort. Thank you so much, Mario, for holding on the fort. And the top 3 fans right now. Number 3 is Timon. Timon, thank you so much for the super chats. I really appreciate it, and good luck with your podcast, my friend. Number 2 is my good buddy Myth Dusters. Christopher, thank you so much for always being in the chat and for hanging out in the podcast. I really appreciate it, my friend. Thank you so much, and for your super chats as well. And the number 1 fan right now is my good buddy Mr. Knuckle Sandwich. Thank you so much, my friend, for all your help. I really, really do appreciate it. There you go. So thank you guys again. But to be honest, guys, all of you guys are my top fans. But this is what YouTube is telling me right now, who's considered the top fan. But all of you are top fans. No matter what time you were able to spend with me today, whether it be a minute or the full 2 hours, I really do appreciate it. So wherever you are in the world, please do take care of yourselves and your families. And you know what we do. Give me a high five right here. Give me a high five right here. And thank you guys for watching. You guys are the best. My name is James Reyes. I am the Box Office Artist. I'm here to say keep drawing. I'll see you all tomorrow. Take care, everyone, and have a wonderful day. Take care, everybody. You are listening to the Box Office Artist Podcast.